27 men flew into the sky on a clear December afternoon. None of them came back. No wreckage was ever found. No bodies, no oil slick on the water. Just silence. December 5th, 1945. Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The war was over. Japan had surrendered 3 months earlier, and the base had settled into the lazy rhythm of peacetime training. 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers sat on the tarmac, engines warming, fuel tanks full. 14 crewmen in total. Most of them were students, young pilots still learning to navigate by the instruments in front of them. Their flight leader was Lieutenant Charles Taylor, 2,500 flying hours. A combat veteran of the Pacific Theater. The mission was routine. Fly east over the Atlantic, practice bombing runs on a shallow reef, then turn west and come home. A triangle, simple. They took off at 2:10 in the afternoon. The weather was clear, visibility unlimited. For the first hour, everything went according to plan. Then Taylor's voice crackled over the radio. Both of my compasses are out. Both compasses, on a plane with redundant instruments. Both had failed at the same time. Taylor was flying blind over open ocean, and he knew it. He radioed the tower at Fort Lauderdale. He said he was over the Florida Keys. The tower told him to fly north, toward Miami. But Taylor was not over the Keys. He was over the Bahamas, hundreds of miles to the southeast of where he thought he was. And when the tower told him to fly north, he flew further out to sea. The transmissions grew worse. Taylor's voice, once calm and professional, began to fray at the edges. I don't know where we are. He said it more than once. The sun was setting now, and the 5 planes were burning fuel they could not replace. One of the student pilots broke radio discipline. His voice cut through the chatter, raw and desperate. Damn it, if we could just fly west, we would get home. He was right. West was Florida. West was land. West was home. But Taylor kept them flying east. The last transmission from Flight 19 came at 7:04 p. Mem, Taylor's voice was barely recognizable now. Exhausted, resigned. When the first plane drops below 10 gallons, we all go down together. 5 planes, 14 men. Into the dark water, but it didn't end there. A PBM, the 5th of March inner rescue plane, was dispatched with 13 crewmen aboard. Its job was to find Flight 19. It never came back either. The crew of the SS Games Mills, a tanker in the area, reported seeing a fireball in the sky. Flames 100 feet high. Then nothing. 13 more men. Gone. The Navy searched for days. Hundreds of planes, hundreds of ships, covering thousands of square miles of ocean. They found nothing, not a single piece of wreckage, not a life raft, not a seat cushion. 1 man survived. Corporal Alan Costner. He had been assigned to Flight 19 that morning. He asked to be excused. He never said why. 27 men vanished on a clear day over calm water. The Navy's official report listed the cause as unknown. To this day, the Atlantic has given no answer, and the ocean keeps its secrets. In the floor of a castle in Germany, there is a symbol, 12 spokes radiating from a center point. Carved into green marble, they call it the Black Sun. And beneath it, in a crypt modeled after the tombs of ancient kings, there are supposed to be 12 pedestals holding an eternal flame for the 12 most faithful dead. But the men who built this place were not ancient kings. They were something far worse. 1934, Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS, found a castle, Wilsberg, a Renaissance fortress in the forest of Westphalia, shaped like a triangle, with 3 round towers. He leased it for 1 Reichsmark a year, 100-year lease. He planned to be there a long time. Himmler didn't want a headquarters. He wanted a temple. He brought in a man named Karl Maria Willigut, an occultist, a mystic who claimed to remember the ancient history of the Aryan race through ancestral memory. Willicott told Himmler what he wanted to hear, that a great battle was coming, a final war between light and darkness, and Wilsberg would be the bastion, the center of the world. The construction began. The North Tower was gutted and rebuilt from the inside. On the upper floor, they built the Obergruppenführersaal, the hall of the supreme leaders, a round room with 12 columns and 12 seats arranged in a circle. And in the marble floor at the center, they inlaid the symbol. The black sun. Below the hall, they carved a crypt, a circular chamber dug into the bedrock, its ceiling domed like the tombs at Mycenae. 12 pedestals lined the walls. In the center, a stone basin for an eternal flame. This was where the 12 most loyal SS officers would be entombed, their spirits guarding the castle forever. But someone had to build all of this. The Nazis built a concentration camp next door, Niederhagen. Prisoners from across occupied Europe were brought in as slave labor. They hauled stone, they cut marble. They laid the floors of the hall where their masters would worship. 1,285 of them died. And then there were the rings. The SS had a tradition. When an officer died, his Totenkopf ring, his death's head skull ring, was returned to Wilsberg. By the end of the war, there were 11,500 rings, kept in a chest inside the castle. 11,500 dead men's rings, gathered in one room like a collection of souls. Himmler also kept a private safe in the West Tower. No one knows what was inside. The safe was never opened. The contents were never catalogued. March 31st, 1945. American troops were advancing through Westphalia. Himmler gave the order. Destroy the castle. His men set explosives in the North Tower. They detonated them, but they ran out of explosives before the job was done. So they set the rest on fire. The castle burned. The rings vanished. The safe was never found. Willicott's prophecies turned to ash. But the floor survived. The black sun is still there. 12 spokes in green marble, exactly as Himmler's men left it. You can visit Welsberg today. You can walk into the North Tower, climb the stairs, and stand in the hall of the supreme leaders. And you can look down at the floor and see it. The symbol that was supposed to outlast the world, it is still waiting. In 1914, a fiction writer published a short story in a London newspaper. He did not label it as fiction. Within months, an entire nation believed it was true. And some of them still do. August 23rd, 1914. The Battle of Mons, Belgium. The British Expeditionary Force was outnumbered and outgunned. The German army was advancing through Belgium like a wave, and the British line at Mons was the only thing in its way. The fighting was brutal. The British held for a day, then retreated. Thousands dead and wounded. The survivors marched south, exhausted, shocked, many of them having not slept in days. 5 weeks later, a man named Arthur Machen sat down at his desk in London and wrote a story. He called it The Bowman. It was about a British soldier at Mons who, in the middle of the battle, whispers a prayer, and from the mist, phantom bowmen appear, the ghosts of Agincourt, medieval archers, long dead, firing arrows into the German lines. The Germans fall, not from bullets, but from wounds with no visible cause. It was published on September 29th in the Evening News. It was not labeled as fiction. Machen thought nothing of it. He was a writer of weird fiction, a friend of Oscar Wilde, a man who spent his career in the margins of the strange. He expected the story to be read and forgotten. Instead, it began to grow. By the spring of 1915, the story had changed. The bowmen were gone. In their place, people spoke of angels, shining beings standing between the British and German armies. Phantom cavalry riding through the mist, figures of light that turned the enemy's rifles aside. The story spread through the trenches like a fever. Soldiers who had never read Machin's story swore they had seen the angels themselves. Letters home described them in vivid detail. Sermons were preached about them in churches across England. The Angels of Mons became a national legend in less than a year. The Society for Psychical Research took notice. They were the leading organization for the scientific study of supernatural claims. They issued a statement. We have received none at all. Not a single first-hand account. Every report was second-hand, third-hand, or traced back to someone who had read Machin's story. The soldiers who did report visions described things consistent with something far less mystical. Men who had not slept in 72 hours, men under continuous artillery fire for days, men running on adrenaline, terror, and nothing else. Their brains did what exhausted brains do. They filled the darkness with shapes. Machin tried to stop it. He wrote letters to the newspapers. He told anyone who would listen that the story was fiction, that he had invented it, that there were no angels at Mons. Nobody listened. Worse, some accused him of undermining morale. In wartime, telling the truth can look like treason. Journalist David Clarke later suggested something darker. That British military intelligence may have planted the stories deliberately. A morale-boosting myth, seeded through a newspaper, allowed to grow on its own. A lie that became a truth, because enough people needed it to be true. In 2022, during the Russian invasion of Ukraine, a story spread online. A single Ukrainian pilot, they said, had shot down 6 Russian jets in one day. They called him the ghost of Kiev. He was not real, but people needed him to be. The pattern repeats. Mons, Kiva. Whenever humans face something too large, too terrible, too senseless to endure alone, the mind reaches for something beyond itself. An angel, a ghost, a story. Arthur Machen died in 1947. To the end, he insisted he had written nothing but a story. But the angels are still flying.